They say if we'll only avoid any confrontation with the enemy, he'll forget his evil ways and learn to love it.
What up, YouTube? Hey, it's TC Thief here. I'm bringing you the third installment of the Tyth guides. This is going to be the tank Tyth guide. It's going to be narrated by none other than the Yoboo from Hates You. He is Hates You's main tank. He's going to go through the entire fight with you, some specking, a little bit of specking on each of the tanks, and he's going to go through the mechanics of the fight. This is a very extensive guide, so enjoy. If you like these guides that we're putting out, go ahead, like, subscribe, leave some comments in the comments section. But we're going to keep putting out these guides as soon as the new bosses come out. We got you. We're going to put out the guides for the new bosses, but without any further ado, I give you the Yoboo.
Hello, I am Yoboo, and this is going to be a tanking guide for hard mode Tyth. I am a tank for Hates You, and I've been a tank main since Progression Brontis. So we at Hates You have been making these guides to try and get the community excited about the game again, both those currently playing and those away at the moment. Tyth is the first boss in the new raid Gods from the Machine, and the next boss is slated for next month. So we hope that those of you that are interested will come by and check it out. So for Tyth, first thing I want to talk about is just simple positioning. We like to tank Tyth on this line right here. This is obviously the door, and this is the straight line left. Right would work as well. Basically, there are 4 adds that spawn on these corners, and later on to the fight, they spawn on the cardinal directions as well. But you have a much higher chance of not having a add here if you tank on one of these lines, as opposed to guaranteeing if you go on a corner. And for pulling the boss, if you have ever been excited by the thought of S-keying, how's your chance? I pull this boss, and this cast right here is the only cast where he doesn't move. But still, if I go backwards, he's still a little bit laggy, so he's out of my melee range here. So I end up going slowly back and forth over and over. It's a little annoying, but it gets the job done. And of course, you do your triple taunt rotation, and the final positioning you want is kind of here. This is before we had the set strat of tanking on this line, so right now we tank on this line, and as well as this circle that's about to come up, like to have it on the outer ring of this arena here instead of in the inside. But before we talk about inversion, let's talk about the 2 abilities that he does in this phase and the rest of the fight. So he has this conal here, and every time this conal hits you, you'll get a stacking debuff that reduces the amount of healing you receive. And every time he auto-attacks you, you will get this debuff that reduces your armor. The armor one is cleansable by healers, and this healing received is not cleansable. So these debuffs don't really affect our gameplay. The most it does is make us want to use cooldowns with 3 or 4 stacks, 3 or 4 times it happens per phase. But in general, he does not hit hard at all. The only time he does is if he has a large amount of rage, which I will talk about later. But basically, I just use small cooldowns when I can, so Endure Pain and Rage Defense, Oil Slick for PT, Force Speed for Assassin, and that's kind of as far as I go. If the whole rate is getting low, you could definitely use a bigger cooldown. The rate we're killing the fight, yesterday we killed it in 3 minutes and 15 seconds. So some of these 3-minute cooldowns, obviously we're not going to get even 2 uses out of them, so they're very important at the end of the fight. So I tend to save these bigger ones. And as far as positioning here again, talking about this blue circle is called inversion. So it's important that you have this positioning. First I'll explain why, but so the actual physical abilities of this move, if you are standing inside the circle, you get pulled through him to the outside of the circle. and if you are on the outside of the circle, you get pulled into the circle next to him, basically. So if you're standing here, you will get knocked pretty much to this ring here, and the closer you are to Tyth, the farther you get knocked. So if you're like, say, right here, you get knocked pretty far back to here. It's good to know how far you're going to get knocked, especially as a tank, when you're picking up adds that will spawn in the future. And also, don't forget that, like, this is a circle, so if there's a bunch of things over here, you can stand over here and get knocked this direction. It doesn't happen often, but it can be useful, and it has helped in the past. This inversion, also, when you land, you are going to be disabled, or hindered, I guess, and this doesn't let you use abilities like Force Leap, Mad Dash, Force Sprint, Sniper Roll, things like that, Hydraulics. But if you use it before the cast goes off, obviously it doesn't go away when you use it. So he didn't use Hydraulics, but he could use Hydraulics there and move fast at this point. And as a PT, you definitely want to do that. So these two debuffs here, for the green, it means you're doing increased damage and healing, and also that Tyth is ignoring your threat. So if I were to single taunt Tyth right now, it would do nothing because of this ignore threat mechanic. And notice how the off tank got these purple debuffs. This means he's doing decreased DPS and decreased healing. Also, forgot to mention this, when you get knocked from inversion, the main tank, they lose this debuff. So this is the tank swap mechanic. So this still stays up, it can be cleansed, it doesn't matter, I'm not tanking right now, and Cat will start taking the healing received debuff. So this positioning is important because if Tyth is, say, like here, too close to the wall, anyone who's standing out there will just get flipped right off the arena. So if he is that close, first of all you have to tell your raid, so that at least your other tank partner knows, and if someone else is standing out, they know to stand fairly far away. And if you don't know, just a simple technique that happens in most MMOs, and especially is really effective in SWTOR, is just you're making the boss backpedal. You just literally tap W over and over, and he just moves away. Like, I moved him maybe 10 feet there in those 2 seconds. That's just something that you should know as a tank, and if you don't, just keep it in your arsenal. So the other main mechanic of this fight is Rage, and I briefly talked about it. So Tyth has Rage stacks. So when he gets Rage, he does more damage, and his cleaves that I showed you become larger. So at 0 Rage, you've already seen this, but this is the size of his regular cleave. At 3, 4, 5, it becomes a larger cleave, and then at 6 or above, it becomes a 180-degree cleave. This is important for later when there's adds out. Also, this line energy wave also becomes bigger, but this is more of a tank check to make sure that your tanks are actually tanking, because if they aren't, it's just gonna point at adds, and doesn't matter how thick this is, it's just gonna kill them. So Rage. How does Tyth gain Rage? 1, you kill an add. 2, he kills an add. So if every add you kill adds 1 stack to his Rage, and every add he kills adds 3 stacks to his Rage. And the attack that I did not mention was his 10 stack Rage ability. And at 10 stacks, he does a room-wide AoE damage that is unmitigatable. It does 55%-ish within a few percent of each person's health. And so if he kills an add and it adds 3, obviously that's a very large swing towards that number 10. But let's talk about the adds. There's 4 types of adds. So as a tank, I'll go through them, which order you should deal with them, and how important they are. So the yellow ones are the most frequent. There will always be at least 2 per wave. They are just run and gun shooters. They will basically force speed to whoever they have aggro to. They'll just run over them really fast and shoot them a lot. So these are high priority to pick up because they do a lot of damage to especially healers. Most often they will go on healers first. Sometimes they go, I think it's proximity to a DPS. So these will be picked up. They're just standard mobs that run and shoot people. Next right here is the red, that's the lance. They have a red line AoE at the end of the cast. It shoots through the red laser, and most of the raid doesn't care at all. It's like maybe 10k, probably less damage. But as a tank, if you're in that AoE when it goes off, your shield gets overloaded. So actually this debuff right here, if your shield is overloaded, you cannot use your shield, so you can't shield any attacks, which is bad. Both tanking Tyth, but even more so with ads. If you're taking a bunch of ads, you need to use a large cooldown or else. So you really don't want to stand in it. And then this blue is the Justice, and it is basically a slow wrecking ball. It's just gonna slowly walk. It's probably going towards Kalizo, and it's just gonna really slowly walk towards whoever has aggro on. But it spawns and has a shield, and melee can hit it from the inside the shield. You do get a damage debuff that stacks and does damage. So the way you deal with this is you stun the ad, that way the range can do damage to the Justice. And in general it probably takes 2 CC, so as the tank you should be in charge with Sith versus CCs. So you have 2 CC, and although it is in your rotation for Juggernaut, definitely save them for these ads. They need to be CC'd so that they can be killed with the rest. And then the last ad here is the Grace. The Grace has 2 types of casts, Avira's Grace and Avira's Restoration. It does 3 casts of Avira's Grace, which heals the boss 2% per cast and removes a stack. So right here we have 9 stacks. We would kind of want, it probably would go down 3, and then the final one also, it removes 3 stacks all at once, but it also gives them a damage reduction buff. So it's kind of up to your group to choose which one, pick your poison basically. Do you want 6% more HP or do you want 50% damage debuff? I know groups that do it both ways. And so I think the moment it spawns, it starts casting. I can start this actually. So the moment they're all out, they're instantly moved. Like this guy is already like, he's booking it towards a healer over here. This guy's shooting, so he's already doing the laser, and then the shield's out, and this cast is already going. So Grace spawns every 2 waves. So the 2nd, 4th, 6th, and 8th wave, if you were to get that far, have Grace. The 4th and up have 2 Grace. For the first time we have a Grace, we just nuke it because we don't need the stack reduction at all in that part. So these are the 4 ads, and then you have to learn about. And each killing one is 1 rage. And remember, 10 rage is bad. 55% of your health. So the way to go about this is to stack the ads all at once and kill them all at once. So the first inversion here, as this happens, right as this happens, you see the colors. And I forgot to mention that they're correspondent, but I think it should have been clear. The yellow ones are Guardians, the blue ones are Justice, the red is Lance, and the green is Grace. So as I'm the tank that pulls, as this is getting launched, I have to look at these and decide where I'm going and what I'm doing with the ads. So as I said, these guys run really fast, and especially ones that are right next to the boss, you have to grab them ASAP, because this guy might just book it for the tank for no real reason. So standard for me is just hit this with a Scream or a Vicious Slash, and if there's 2, I would, if this was a Guardian, I would Saber Throw it, because it's also in range of the tank and it's dangerous. But and then I go towards the healers and wait, and this is just Crushing Blow right here, which is very important because these guys can just go flying, and especially as you're going towards where you want to stack them, which in this case is a Justice. Justice should be the first place you stack because of how limited the timing is of killing them. So these guys, like, before I learned how to do this efficiently, they would just like go fall off and they'd run up to a sniper and like they'd just be everywhere. This will be a very long learning process. It took a while to get this over the course of a night to really get the easy ones down even. But crushing blow for Juggernaut, and I'll go over the others in a bit. But you just stack them here, nuke them down. Preferably you'd want to kill this guy at the same time, but it's kind of hard with the Justice, and I'll explain it in a little bit. So I haven't talked about how Tyth loses his rage. This white buff here is his rage subsiding. So this is an 8-second buff, and as it ticks down, if it hits 0, he'll lose 1 stack. So whenever you gain a stack, it goes all the way back up to 8 seconds. So if you kill one ad, and then 7 seconds later you kill another, it goes to 2 stacks, not 1 second later, like 1 again. So you have to, the more unified you do at killing the ads at the same time, the better. Because basically we killed this ad so late that this was probably at least halfway over before it was going to lose a stack. So the rate we killed it, it was basically like we killed 4 ads slowly. It was just, it's not efficient, and we could probably have 1 less rage going to the next phase. So and the version happens every 40 seconds, and as a tank, these first 2 waves you will easily clear them out before the next waves come. So right here, like, inversion is coming in a few seconds, and if you notice, I save my Force Scream here. I highly recommend these first 2 waves you should taunt, and I always save my set bonus for the first taunt swap, just because aggro can be an issue, and there's no chance for AoE taunt to steal threat from you, which I'll talk about in a couple waves. So I taunt set bonus, and just now I'm taking this boss over here while the other tank he's on the even wave, so he's dealing with the grace waves. So he took the 2 guardians and brought it to this lance while someone just nuked the grace. That's pretty common for the grace wave. Either you could also stack it on the grace and single target a lance. It works as well. But so these 2 ways are they become the simple part of the fight. So there'll be DPS here. But here comes the 3rd wave. So the 3rd wave is when the fight gets tough for tanks, especially. So right as this inversion that is about to come out, these ads are here, they're about to spawn, and now after this the inversion is going to come up. So now they're out, and inversion is happening right now, and there could be a mob right here. You have to make sure there isn't one. If you see one, you immediately move the boss. But so this is the difficult part. We usually have a healer stay out so that they run to the healer, and this would be me right here. I would get knocked out in AoE taunt. I think this pull, yeah, this pull goes pretty well. So I AoE taunt these 3, and that works well. And then I just take it to this lance. And again, this is pretty standard. This is a pretty good RNG. The more justice you get, the worse. I've only seen it once, maybe twice, but you can get 2 justice in the same wave. But this is just, the same. You're grabbing the ads, piling them up, killing them all at once. So now we're DPSing, and the ads, again, they're already coming. So now these are up even before the inversion starts. So at this point, this is wave 4. And as I'm the tank out here, my job is to get as many as I can.
There's 2, I got interrupt on left one, kill the right.
And bring them to the middle of the room so that the other tank can come here and AoE taunt. Also, the healer should come out here too if there's one on the healer. That way he can get launched here and AoE taunt those 3 ads, which he just did. Now, the issue with this wave, these 2 waves, the reason you no longer taunt to take each inversion, we're not taunting here, is because say these ads are just everywhere, like then they start flying towards the group, the other tank has to AoE taunt those ads. And if you remember what I said, these green debuffs make the boss ignore you. But also, these green debuffs fall off a lot quicker than the purple one, which I have. So as soon as that green debuff is gone, the boss can have aggro again. So what happens somewhat frequently is that tank will AoE taunt, and it's ignoring him the whole time, and then there'll be like a split second left on this taunt buff. This is mine, but we can pretend it's the other tank's AoE taunt. And as soon as this green buff falls off, he'll just turn towards the other tank, and potentially, it's usually around the giant, his cast, the line AoE, right? Yeah, this one. So if you don't, he's about to kill like 3 ads, which will put him at like 13, 14 / 18. But this is the you have to taunt after. Like, hopefully there's someone out here and you can taunt off. But if you're the other tank and you need an AoE taunt, you need to tell the other tank, because otherwise we'll just single taunt and then basically everything will be ruined, because we cannot use our AoE taunt because we have to do the same thing the next wave. And so this is 4 or 5 waves, and at this point you should be nearing 30%, and this is when the burn of the fight starts.
No, that's a good one.
So once he's sub 30, he has another move. It's called Intensify Rage, and this is the method that I might have hinted at. It is an 0.8 second channel, and this gives him 2 rage. So now he's at 7, and also resets this white buff. It's pretty important. But basically, I think this is where this run goes badly. But what's good, like, what you have to realize is that he does this cast. I think he does it again right here. But he will gain 2 rage right here. So he'll gain 2 rage, and then 1 will fall off, and then he'll cast it again, and then 1 will fall off. So keep going like that. So basically this is another softened rage. One softened rage is the amount of ads. You can see there's a ton of ads. But the other is that he is slowly getting 1 rage at a time every like 15-ish seconds. And this is where you'll get a lot of we did a lot of blaming of people killing ads when we didn't realize that this was a thing with adding 2 stacks. I think some of us thought, oh yeah, it adds a stack, but it adds 2 stacks, so it's pretty important to know where you are in the fight. So once you're like sub 30, he will cast this Intensify Rage. So around 30%, you have to decide as a team, are you killing the last set of ads? And there's a grace there. So are you letting the grace cast 3 times? Are you interrupting it and then letting the debuff go? Then just kiting the ads for the rest of the way, which is what we do. We kite the ads starting in that phase. And I can just let this go through the wipe. But so I'm trying to get knocked over here and taunt these things. And I stood too close to the boss, so I got knocked too far. But I'm going to go to burn on the Juggernaut. Actually, no, I'm going to go to, just really quickly, I can go through a standard wave 1 on Power Tech. This is too fast. So there's 2 Guardians and 2 Lance. So as a Power Tech or a Sin, I come here and Rocket Punch, snap aggro, and then Force Pull or Grapple this guy, and grab him over here. So now you have these 3 ads lined up. As a PT, you can CC them and just AoE burst, and someone single targets this, and this is the standard, I would say, for like these 2 tanks. So going into wave 4 and 5. So this is a burn now. I'm gonna do this on PT. So now this is like wave 5. We're at 7 stacks. He's got the damage reduction buff. And one good thing about PT for this fight is that you can AoE taunt. So like I'm here, inversion is about to happen, but I can see that all these ads are here. I can taunt midway through this inversion and get the ads on me, and I'll get knocked out with hydraulics. So there's no chance of the boss cleaving these ads, because that would be an instant wipe with how many ads there are. And so here you can watch me be terrible at kiting and dealing with ads. Oil is also very good for this fight on PT. So is Carbonize. But using both at the same time is not good, which I did. You're overlapping your defensives. This is the first time I actually pulled Tyth on a PT and we one-shot it on that PT. So I kind of didn't know what I was doing, but there's no reason for me not to be using like Heat Blast. I think this is Searing Wave. We'll pretend it's Flamethrower. And I should be using all my actives mitigation here, and I'm just not. But I die here. At least I'm doing my job to cutting all these ads. I think I have all of them, maybe. Maybe Cal has a couple. But then the boss does die eventually. But so you should kiting of these ads at the end is the burn. It's a fun chase. And here it is on Juggernaut really quickly. So this is going really well. We have 3 stacks on the boss, and he's got 4 droids over here. So now there's like 10 droids out there, and they're coming up on the boss. But notice, like, they're back here. I go a little bit to the left. It would have been better if I stood here, so I get knocked here, but I get knocked semi in the middle. Short, so this is a really good AoE taunt here. And now I'm just kiting for saving my life. Gotta run forever. Also, this is also pretty early. I'm bringing these ads too close, trying to get these stray ads on me, but not worth it. This is just me using like every cooldown, trying to survive, grabbing as many ads as I can. There's 2 Justice, which is annoying, but this is like they're all burning. This is actually really good. Like I have most of them. The healers are not taking much damage. I am taking much damage, which is good. I actually survived with Medpack here, and then the boss is dead as I arrive, and then I lovingly fall over. It's kind of like it doesn't happen as often as Master Blaster, but this at least your first. I guarantee your first few kills will be probably you'll have a lot of dead people. So the burn is basically wave 4 or 5, you're sub 30, and you're deciding how you're dealing with ads. Do you kill another wave, or do you start kiting? The earlier you start kiting, the quicker the fight can be, and the more deadly it can be on your tanks / healers if they're not dealt with correctly. So as a review, inversion, know what ads are coming out and where to go, what to deal with first. For the inversion tank swaps, early you can taunt. I always use set bonus with it just to make sure I can taunt quickly again. After those first 2 waves, you have to hold your taunt just to make sure the other tank isn't AoE taunting, and even though they have the debuff that doesn't let them take aggro, as soon as it falls off, if there's even a split second of that taunt aggro debuff, they'll turn towards that tank. And know when to use your cooldowns. You don't need to use the big ones unless the whole rate is low and you're and the boss is 8 stacks or something, and you have 3 healing down debuffs. And CC on the Justice. Those are the big things. The number 1 thing is ad management. You need a lot of practice with it. And the second is knowing how to deal with inversion and the tank aggro. I'm just going to quickly go over talents. Not much. PT is actually, as some of you may know, it's by far the least performing tank. But PT is actually probably the best tank for this fight for several reasons. The boss doesn't hit that hard, as I've said many times, so the PT has the most natural mitigation, which is good. It can use their energy shield for the end of the kiting, but it has many other things like hydraulics before every inversion, so you'll have hydraulics when you're running there. You have an ranged auto attack, so and a pull, so you can pull one, auto one twice, grab them over. You have an AoE CC, no other tank has that. Oil is really good on the fight. It's got a lot of benefits. For as far as talents specific to this fight, I mean, you always want hydraulics lower, especially in this fight. It works really well. There's AoE damage, so you want close and personal. You're gonna want this. There's tons of ads. This is kind of the one that's not normal. You want just in case. 15 seconds is nice. Long hydraulics, and this is the other main difference that you would usually not take. This is actually really good for this fight. It turns Electro Dart into a 6-second stun, and Carbonize into a 3.5-second stun. And for I mean, I've actually done this where like you leap to one Guardian, then you leap to a Justice. It's fun. I think it's useful. Not specific. There's a few. These are the kind of the important ones that are different. Just these two. For Sin, it's also not much different from a regular. Make sure you're spec'd into the most balanced defensive cooldown in the game. It's called Force Speed. It works wonders. If you spec into it, it's 15 seconds because of this, and you spec into this, it's now lasts for 2.3. Oh, it's a Swiss spec, so 2.5 seconds, and you just happen to absorb 60% of all damage. But for this fight, lower the cooldown of electrocute. It's even the same icon. Obviously, you want your AoE, and then this. It's kind of a troll skill, but talent. But normally you would take this Force Cloak, but Force Shroud is pretty useless on the fight. It's only for like Justice, I think stacks and Lance shooting. So you definitely don't need this. So this is when you might as well. You could save a GCD somewhere, maybe. There's not much else to take for Sin. And Jug. There are a couple. You do want to take reduced Force Choke, which I do anyway because it's rotational right here. Obviously more AoE damage. You do not need them unstoppable in this fight. It doesn't work on anything. So you might as well take this, even though you're probably going to be full rage, but you're taking lots of AoE damage. You get knocked around the fight. This is you want a lower cooldown CC, lower enraged defense is always good, and then I just take this for DPS as well as this for DPS. So those are there's very few specifics, but the main specific talents for all three tanks is the lower cooldown on CC, and the ones that have, I guess PT has longer CC, and then just because situationally you don't need unstoppable for this fight. So that's tanking Tyth. I hope it wasn't too much all at once. If you watched all of this, thank you for sticking with me, and if it was good, let us know. If I did something terribly wrong, put it in the comments. If there's something I missed and you know, put it in the comments. Hope everything goes well with Tyth, and hopefully looking to maybe see some old players back into the game. Take care.
Alright, YouTube, you heard him. That was Yoboo. Go ahead, once again, like, subscribe. This has been brought to you by the Rage Brothers. I'm gonna keep putting out those guides, so sub to the channel. Leave your comments. I got the discussion thread on the channel. Go ahead and post some suggestions that you want to see us put out as a raid group, or as like part of the community, what you guys want to see, what kind of content you want to see. So once again, mash that sub button. Rage Brothers out.
And they say if we'll only avoid any confrontation with the enemy, he'll forget his evil ways and learn to love it.